All right, now I'd like to welcome in retired Chicago Police Lieutenant John Garrido. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. There's so much happening, so much nuance, a lot of moving pieces, as we just heard from our three reporters there. But I want to start with something that Alex mentioned in his report. What is your reaction to Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson just moments ago, really earlier this morning, signing an ICE-free zone executive order which prohibits the use of city property for federal immigration operations? What is your response to that?
It's absolutely ridiculous. If the city would just calm down and just cooperate and coordinate with ICE, you wouldn't have the situations that we're having now where they have to go into the neighborhoods to get people that they're looking for, and then they end up taking other people with them. There's an easy way to do this, and the simplest way is just to work with them. They're going to be here. They're here. They're not going anywhere. So let's coordinate efforts to make it safe for everybody. Similar with the National Guard. They're coming. And especially now after this stand down order that came in over the weekend, they just handed a reason for the president to be able to send in the National Guard under the Insurrection Act. They absolutely now can legally come in here because they can use them to protect not only federal property, but also federal personnel. And when you've got officers not responding to assist ICE agents, you basically just handed it to them and told them, hey, okay, now we're able to send in the troops because local law enforcement isn't going to help.
So, Lieutenant, my question, local officials, the local lawmakers are basically saying the problem is that the Trump administration isn't working with them and isn't working to coordinate on the local and state level. What is your response to that?
So in regard to the ICE agents, the way that they would work with them is we would have to change our laws because we have our Illinois sanctuary laws and our welcoming ordinance that say that we can't work together with immigration in any fashion whatsoever. And in that regard, what I'm talking about is coordinated with them to let them go into the jails and pick up the criminal immigrants that are here. But because they don't do that, they have to go out into the neighborhoods to look for them when we release them into the community. And then that's where you get all this chaos that's going on. So that's what I'm talking about, coordination there. As far as the National Guard goes, that's simple. Right now, the city of Chicago does what's called, I call scarecrow policing. If you drive down Michigan Avenue Friday, Saturday night, you're going to see cars every other block with their lights on. All you have to do is have the National Guard come in and replace those officers, free them up. Brandon Johnson has 130 officers on his police detail. He can use National Guard to protect him and send them back out on the street. We could free up several hundred officers, maybe even 500 officers, to then use them to go into the neighborhoods and just use the National Guard as the scarecrow policing.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is an option that, many believe would work. We know that DHS says Chicago has become a war zone. We know that the governor, the mayor, they're fighting back. Governor Pritzker saying that the ICE raids are actually creating a war zone. So, Lieutenant, I'd like to listen to some of what the president and the governor have recently said.
They want to create the pretext for bringing troops in, for making it seem like there is a war zone in Chicago. They're the ones creating that war zone.
And we're going to Chicago. We have a governor that thinks it's wonderful when 50 people in a short period of time were murdered in Chicago. Over 200 people were hit. And so we send in the National Guard. We send in what's ever necessary. People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well. We're doing it like nobody's ever done it before.
All right. So, Lieutenant, as you know, a lot of people outside of the city think it is just truly like a bastion of crime. And it's certainly pocketed in certain areas. But the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, as we just heard during those reports, now filing this lawsuit against the administration over deployment of the National Guard. There are so many different opinions on this, but how do you think this growing and continuing clash between the feds and state and local officials is going to impact these troops that are apparently being deployed here?
Well, I tell you, as far as the crime aspect of it goes, we've had almost 300 people killed in the city of Chicago this year alone. And of those 300 people, 15 of them were white. The rest are all black and brown people that were murdered this year. So there is crime and problems. While it might not be as widespread as the perception is, there definitely is on the south and west sides of Chicago a huge problem with crime. As far as working with these, what's going on, this back and forth, honestly, they need to take the politics out of law enforcement. Let the Chicago Police Department work together with immigration, work together with the National Guard, so that way we can just calm everything down and do this peacefully, as opposed to this tit for tat between the president and the governor and the mayor is not helping.
Yeah, and you are absolutely right, Lieutenant. I mean, the crime is real. I think sometimes the perception of it is not what is accurate. Chicago police, as we talked about, allegedly told to stand down over the weekend, not respond to calls from federal agents for help. We also saw videos like we're looking at right now after federal agents had deployed tear gas and pepper balls. Then Chicago police officers were caught in the chaos there. You can see some of them, really struggling to breathe, wiping their eyes. First of all, what is your reaction to the videos of the officers apparently in distress there, having problems breathing? And then what is your reaction to this alleged order to stand down?
Yeah, so that is a direct result of the lack of coordination between the agencies. The order came in when they're trying to conflate these three separate incidents. There was a shooting that happened earlier in the morning with an armed woman that was trying to run over ICE agents. Then later on that afternoon, there was an actual person that tried to run an officer off the road, an ICE agent officer off the road, and created a crash. That was at 37th and Kedzie. Then 2 blocks away at 39th Place in Kedzie, a call came out of 30 ICE agents that were being surrounded and attacked by a crowd. Initially, they were sending officers in. Those officers then the lieutenant came on the air and said, per the chief patrol, those officers are to stand down and to not go to the scene. No officers, I don't care what the city says, no officers responded to 39th Place and Kedzie to assist those agents until an hour later, a full hour later, an hour and 10 minutes later, then they responded. When they arrived there, the officers were told to leave their gas masks and helmets in the car because they didn't want the officers to look intimidating. And then ICE let them know, he let the command staff know that they were going to be deploying tear gas, but unfortunately, the lack of communication and coordination, our officers weren't able to get their gas masks on in time. So then they ended up getting caught in the mix there. All this is because there's a lack of coordination. Here, and I'm going to give you another example. If the KKK was calling in saying they were being surrounded by a mob and that they were being attacked, we would have to go in and assist. That's just the way it works. We have a duty to intervene. We have a duty to protect everybody. So had they gone there to begin with, maybe things would have been different. Maybe tear gas would not have had to have been deployed. There should be better communication and better coordination between the agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly no argument there. All right. Retired Chicago Police Department Lieutenant John Garrido, thank you so much for your time today.